dialect things,
No, I won't do that.
but just after a fairly ordinary Penrith voice.
Very ordinary Penwith voice. So shall I say just that?
Yeah. Um,
I could say, I suppose, you got this running there.
yeah, he's going there.
I just say, well, I suppose I've got a fairly normal Penwith voice and accent, as far as the people that I know, or my contemporaries. Then it changes all the time. So if I'm speaking to someone on the phone, I might be quite posh. If I'm speaking to someone that is English, or then I will probably speak to understand, make them understand me. Then within half an hour I could be in the pub, or friends would come in to talk to me, or a local Penzance boys, and we'll suddenly slip into our own dialect, which is probably incomprehensible to anybody else. But you'll do it amongst yourselves, but to do it on your own would feel stagified, like you're putting on a show. But amongst Cornish people that I know, local people to me, we talk about it sometimes. We sit down in the pub and we say, now, what do we like, We'll drop into dialect, we'll drop into particular ways of talking, we'll suddenly find we're speaking a particular Penzance dialect, or using particular expressions. Not in a self-conscious way, because we all do it. And it's like sharing a language, because none of us speak Cornish. At the same time, we also realise that the things that we know from our generation are probably going there. So we're, in some ways, talking the way that our parents did, or our grandparents did, or the characters and local people we know who are older, and you assimilate it all. You find it goes into your speech. But it's a weird thing sometimes. I think it must confuse a lot of people, particularly English people, anybody who moves into Cornwall, because they get quite confused by the fact that they see you actually moving through different ways of speaking all the time.
Yeah, there is.
It's weird. I mean, the sad thing is now that a lot of youngsters, you call it sad or you don't call it sad, depends how you think about it. But my children, for instance, will have certain ways of talking, or ways of rolling their R's or something, which you could say would be vaguely a West Country way of speaking. That's the way that people will see it. A lot of them have got quite strong Cockney accents at schools, particularly in Penwith, because there is such an influx of people from different cultures all over Britain, really, but you get this strange mix, and it affects kids at school. Most of their teachers aren't Cornish. A lot of the kids that are in the school are English, or they're from families where maybe father's Cornish, mother isn't, or vice versa. So you've got a bit of an interesting thing happening with dialect down here. It's changing very quickly.
Do you think the television's has an impact?
Of course it does. I mean, most kids that I know, through my own children, they are going to watch EastEnders. They're going to watch a lot of predominantly London-based dialect programs, and it sticks. Because that's what they talk about when they go to school. They talk about the soaps they see. They talk about American things. And if they talk about them, they imitate what they've seen. It's interesting, really. And we don't have much Cornish dialect on television. I mean, when you can call people a proper Wycliffe sometimes because of the way they speak. It's an expression that's become quite common in Penzance, to call someone a bit of a Wycliffe. It's evolving its own meaning there, really. Oh, here he comes. He's a bit of a Wycliffe, isn't he? And it's basically that they're not real. It isn't real. But then for a lot of youngsters who watch programs like that, if they're not faced with a dialect, or not used to it, they will fall into that sort of strange sort of Mummitsetshire, west of Bristol, straw in your ear, oh my God, he's dead, Constable, stuff like that.
That's good. You're talking about something sort of bang up to date.
Yeah.
Which I made a crash a few myths here as well. That all dialect speakers are old.
Well, they're not.
Well, no, exactly. But talking about Wycliffe, because that's a recent thing, is pretty good. So I got somebody from up St Dennis. They've got a really broad accent. Talking about the video.
Yeah.
With kids to spend all the time with computer games and stuff, just to bring it bang up to date.
Yeah.
Other stuff, which I probably won't use, is people going on about teetering 50 years ago.
Oh, I've got loads of that.
It doesn't. it's not going to connect with kids. It doesn't really connect with today.
I mean, it's funny, you do get little stories, and some of them are, naturally you pick up stories all the time. An interesting thing, I heard one, this is a few years ago, but I thought it was interesting, about a teacher at a local school who was, one of his pupils came from Pendeen, or Biscale, or Biscaswell as it's spelled, Scale. And the teacher just bought a new car, see, and he drives into the schoolyard, and this youngster comes out, looks at the car with some amazement, and says, "Is that your new car, sir?" And he says, "Yes." He says, "How's it going with you in it?" I remember being told that because, as far as I know, not speaking Cornish, it was an extraordinary use of words from a kid who was about 10 years old, that he actually expressed himself like that, because it was very accurate, but in fact it wasn't an English way of saying it at all. "How's your car going with you in it, sir?" As if it wouldn't go any other way.
Do you think there's a link between Cornish and the language and the dialect spoken room?
Oh yeah, but no doubt about that. I mean, it depends where you go. I mean, it's a sad thing to have to say that you've got to talk to older people, but not necessarily so. I mean, I'm always amazed in Penzance, and a lot of things, this is a problem with Cornwall, and some it's a problem with our community. But of course you won't hear this in isolation, really. Unless you speak a particular way and you're totally unself-conscious about it, you've never probably heard yourself speak. A lot of older people have never heard themselves speak. I used to do a lot of oral history recording years ago, running a project down here, and that was talking to older people, some in their 80s, 90s, many have sort of long gone. And as soon as you played the recording back, some wonderful dialects and wonderful language connections, and they say, "My God, I sense it common. Common, it was a common thing. Oh no, I can't. That's awful." And it was that awful thing of the shame of the way they spoke.
Yeah.
Never heard it, but play it back, and it was immediately associated with being a bit thick, a bit stupid, a bit slow.
We might have to do this bit again on somebody better than a telephone.
All right, wait a minute. Put it on pause a minute now.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, at the moment it's just an interesting example of what happens. There's a friend of ours has put together a play, a reading from the writings of Charles Lee, who came down here in the 19th century. He's a smart boy. He wasn't Cornish, came from somewhere around London, and he came down, he lived in Newlyn, he lived all over Cornwall, but he was a very, very smart observer of people, and a very smart observer of expressions. Probably more than most more than most Cornish commentators have been, who tend to be self-conscious. He wrote down what he heard. And reading it from a Cornish point of view, you know it's right. So, got this play together, and we were looking for people to take part in doing a reading. And there's friends of mine who, it's hard to do that. A lot of middle class nonsense, So anyway, they come in, and then there's a friend of mine, very close friend, very strong Penzance dialect, still there, and his sister. And we've all got involved in doing this play. And what's most interesting about it is that we're doing a reading, you see. Now, of course, this reading is written from all parts of Cornwall, therefore it doesn't necessarily run to any particular, there's no commonality about it. What's very interesting is that it doesn't sit easy on us to read it in a certain way. So it is already changing straight away. It's changing, we're changing lines. You suddenly feel uncomfortable, even if it's not expressions that you think you use very often, you find you do. And the whole script is changing in its emphasis, in the words that are used in very, very small ways. There are some expressions, some ways of speaking, which just don't fit. And it's been brilliant to see people who are suddenly realizing, I don't understand this, we don't say that. Get on with it, that's what we say. We don't. There's always every flipping part of the play, there's something that someone will read and they'll say, hang on a minute. Oh, come on, let's say that. And that has been very pleasurable. Even though we do tend to ham it up, there's no doubt about that, we ham it up. But our feeling about it is the fact that we've got a right to. We've got a right to do that. If we're happy to feel that we can use our dialect and our memory and knowledge of it, then I think there's a duty to do that.
Have you got any examples where it had changed?
Well, it would do in terms of, like, you don't say we'm. No one says we'm going this, or, I be doing this, or stuff like this. You just don't say that, Dan. Because as people used to say about West Penwith, is the fact they used to say that the people of West Penwith spoke English beautifully. And that could be taken as being quite an insult. What they actually meant was the fact that the English that was spoken in dialect was, I suppose, I don't know how you'd explain it, but it didn't have that Somerset Devon side to it. It was spoken quite precisely, in the way that the Irish speak English. They speak it. The later the language was lost, which in West Penwith it was lost very late, so the English that was spoken was much more the contemporary English that was spoken. It wasn't but different in construction, but you don't get that sort of East Cornwall, Devonshire, Weem, and I think there are lots of examples of it, but I can't necessarily bring them to mind now.
It doesn't matter. Some of the other recordings I've done, they use that.
We don't.
You some stupid.
Yeah, we don't do that.
We're going now.
Oh, we don't do that.
No, not at all.
Never say.
I have heard truer people, fairly broad dialect, use we.
Yeah. I've heard people say, I don't know what you think about we down here. I've heard we used that way round. Don't often hear us used down here.
No.
But then you hear people saying, done us.
Done us, yeah.
Done us, what do you think? Going out ours. So I mean, but there's a particular sort of way of saying things which is definitely east to our way of thinking, because it's further than Ale. It's East Cornwall, whereas down here, and you'll find that in all dialects. And the other thing is that the differences in this area, which you will still find, say, between St Ives, St Just, Pendeen, Mousehole, Newlyn, are so subtle and so different. I mean, it's still there, hasn't gone. There's a one. This is an old story, but it's like a simple word. Like this is not an old story actually. This is a Newlyn woman and a Mousehole woman meeting on the cliff road to Mousehole, and the Mousehole woman is pushing a pram with a baby in it, and it's in the middle of winter, you see. And as the Newlyn women passes each other, they recognise each other, and the Newlyn woman looks into the pram and says, "Oh, dear Autumn," and the wind's blowing very hard, and she looks in and she says, "Oh, dear Autumn, what's it called?" And the Mousehole woman says, "No, he's wrapped up." And it's as subtle as that. I mean, cold. I mean, you've got to understand that.
I like that. That's a good one. There's a couple of things. Cat out of the bag time. I recorded my mother, and she came up with two or three things like that. Sort of cat out. One of them was really good. It actually happened down here. We used to come down here every Easter, bring all the family in to pick bloody winkles and limpets.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
You file.
Yeah.
All these people cycled past, and we had our cousin David with us, and he wouldn't have more than about 5. When he's older, he was cycling.
Mm.
He was like mad keen on cycling, and I said, "Oh look, David, see all those lovely bikes?" And he goes, "Yeah, it says women's bikes." Women's bikes. Mother said, "Women's bikes? I hadn't heard today. I've heard of BSA and rally. I hadn't heard of women's bikes. Women's bikes! Women's bikes!" We were in bits. His mother just couldn't.
So people will get very confused by even the slight change of sound in the word.
Yeah.
And that still happens.
You got any other little sort of anecdotes to like that? It's cold.
What's it called?
No, it's wrapped up.
It's wrapped up.
I like things like that.
I do. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? As soon as you ask, you can't remember. If I was sitting down amongst people now, I'd be able to remember things just like that, because it happens every day.
But there's a clash to show the differences between sort of standard English and dialect.
Oh my lord. Uh, you know, the weird thing is that you don't realise that you say things funny until you're dealing with someone who actually finds what you say to be most peculiar. I'm just trying to think now of something which illustrates that. It's like, you know, we're talking to Kevin earlier. I mean, it's taken Kevin. Sometimes he is completely lost. Not just because of accent and dialect, it's because that there's something strange about the way that we express things. And I'm just trying to, as you say, bring home something there.
Have you got a directly story? Most people have.
No, directly is, that's a funny one now. That I've never ever thought that applied to West Cornwall at all. And it isn't an expression that anyone that I know uses down here at all. We never use it. I've never heard any of my friends. This whole directly thing, I think, is one of those wonderful things. Either it comes from some musical idea, or it's something to do with the happy perception that the Cornish is slow and everything's done tomorrow. But it isn't. It wouldn't offend people, you know. I said, speaking to Leslie Rowe in the dock, and I was talking away. Here I am. I think I come from Penwith. I know where I am, and I was saying, no, I've been out to Peran, and I'd gone to see a friend down at Crean, and Leslie said, "What?" I said, "Did you see the friend down at Crean? Where's that to?" He said, "I said, well, Crean's just down the road from Peran, lads." "Crane!" "I didn't know where you meant for a minute," he said. It was as subtle as that. Crean wasn't crane, just the same. And yet you could say that's rare, but for him it was important, because as far as he was concerned, I was talking about somewhere completely different, and he wanted to know where it was. I mean,
That's brilliant. Yeah, the shock. But that little anecdote is really good, because you're actually you're actually saying that long E sound,
crane, yeah.
which doesn't exist in standard English.
No, crane.
Yeah. You're saying that as common usage, yeah?
Well, it is.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it is.
For somebody that only knows standard English,
yeah.
That'll probably need to be explained to them.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
There's lots of it. I mean, there's
that's a beauty, that one.
You hear people. There are lots of people who will still. I mean, this is. I don't know whether it's got anything to do with the language at all. But it's like Zenner. What most people say is Zenner. But I mean, you'll still hear people say Senner, which is subtle enough. It's like an S and a Z combined. People still use it. They still use it. A lot of place name pronunciations, you'll still hear Mattern pronounced Mattern. You'll hear like Caswell is Pascale. There's all sorts of people would use it in their everyday speech, and then the youngsters use it because they hear it every day. So in fact, they are speaking Cornish, and they're speaking Cornish with the sounds which they use all the time. It's much easier to learn, depending on which side of the Cornish language you come from. It's easier to learn Cornish, which has got a strong element of sounds which you make totally naturally. It's much harder to come in and learn it when you haven't got that. When you just, it is more difficult, but it sits in your tongue much more easily.
I find it. You can teach somebody Kernow and they bring their own accent to it.
They do, you can't force it. But at the same time, there is something very recognisable if you're speaking Cornish. If you're speaking Cornish to people who have Cornish dialect, they're going to associate much more with the Cornish you're speaking if the dialect you're using has got no relation to it.
Intonation, that's definitely what you want. But I remember we had somebody once, he come from Delabol, but moved to Mid Cornwall, and he had this incredibly strong accent that sounded very Cornish. It just sounded right. And when he got the confidence up to speak a bit of Kernow, he brought his accent into it. And I wanted to record it as an example of how you should speak, because it was natural.
Yeah, that's right.
But the worst of all is when you get people with quite posh English accents trying to speak like a million fishermen.
Well, you can't do that.
It sounds unnatural.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that it's by no means a situation that dialect in this part of Cornwall is reserved for the older people. It's not true. It's totally centred around, like it is around Clay Country or the rest. I mean, it's there. It's where Cornish people gather is where it stays together, and where Cornish people work together, it stays together. When you split up, and you're basically a foreigner amongst foreigners, then you lose it. And I think that's common to everybody. It's not just a Cornish phenomenon. I think it happens everywhere. But we're pretty sensitive about it. Tell you one thing that worries me. It's silly, isn't it? Most common expression we use in West Cornwall, probably, I don't know if it's used anywhere else, it's just that greeting you give when you see someone, which is you. Use it all the time. We used to use it across the street. I mean, do it now. Walk down Market Jew Street. Next thing you're walking down there, and there's a crowd full of, emmets everywhere, and you're walking down the street, and this you comes across the street, right across Market Jew Street. It's not. Those sound silly. What annoys me is that it's not yo. A lot of people who move into Cornwall, and every time you meet a Cornish friend, you say you, all right, and then you might say it to someone who's English is coming, and you'll say you, and they'll go back because they watch a lot of American movies. They'll say yo. Now, this may be subtle, but hang on a minute. That's our expression. It's not theirs.
That'll be a good little bite. I don't know about the Peran in the middle. But
You need to like to say it again.
Yeah, they talk about the you. That's another one. That ew.
Say it. Haven't got go. Yeah, hang on. This hasn't got. Turn it on.
Well, he's going.
All right. Just there's little variations which can be annoying sometimes and actually change the way that we are seen, and actually that does something unpleasant to us in a way. Simple thing. Right down here, every time we meet, you always say, yo, right. It could be short, it can be long. If you're walking down Market Jew Street and it's packed with emmets everywhere, and you see made across the other side of the road, you'll shout out, obviously, to be heard, you! Right? Now, trouble is, what's happening now is that's a common expression for all of us every time you meet. You, right? Now you've got English friends who move in, and you'll treat them in the same manner, and you'll say to them, walk up and see them because you want to make them feel lonely. You'll say, you! And they'll always come back and they'll say, yo! Well, isn't yo? Now, you think it would be, but it's not. It's not at all. Because the yo is like the stuff you're going to get on LA Law or something like that. Now, the subtlety in that is the fact that only someone who's Cornish is going to feel sensitive about that, but as far as I'm concerned, that is a different word. One is Cornish, the other one isn't.
Brilliant. A little laugh there to finish that one off. Actually, how would you spell that if you had to write it down?
You. How do I spell you? Well, it depends how you say it, see. You, I mean, it would either be, it wouldn't be, it'd be sort of Y-E-W almost. You. It's not actually Y-double-O, that'd be you. And then yo, though I haven't said that.
That sound that you said though,
you.
With the ew sound.
You. Yeah.
Very, well, it's right the way throughout the dialect. It's also found in Cornish, Welsh and Breton, but not found in standard English.
Isn't that funny?
I reckon that's
the
talking about language dialect link.
Yeah.
Is that one sound is crucial.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you something. We've had hell up down here. I've had hell up personally, like with a festival, right? I've had hell up from people because this is where you get a real problem about the way you speak. Now in West Cornwall, there's a hard ow sound. It's a hard ow. It's a crows and ray. You don't say crows and ray. And I remember when we got the festival back again, the Feast of St. John, all right. Now, I'll just say it the way that anyone who would have been involved in reviving that or looking at that expression down here would have naturally looked at the word Golowwan. They didn't say Golowwan, nor did they say Golowan, which I've been criticised for not saying. The natural way for us to say it down here is Golowan. Now, there are those people in the Cornish language movement who say you can't say it like that. But that's the way we pronounce that particular sound down here. It's in everything from mousel to crows and ray. That ow sound is very strong. So most people I know, if I was to say to friends of mine, oh, we mustn't say it like that anymore. This is true. We've been criticised for this quite a lot. It's a particular sound that goes with it. I don't think you can be criticised for that. You shouldn't be criticised for it if that's the way that you say it. But that's true. That's true. We've had people criticising us for it's not Galowan, it's Galowan. Well, who's to tell us how you should say the word? Because every other word in dialect we use or in the way we speak has got that sound in it, so we're only going to change it back to something it isn't, is it?
It's like, yeah, I know.
It's true. It's true.
It depends what you're speaking as well, whether you're speaking standard English, dialect, or Cornish. We always have this argument about Camborne,
Cameron.
Mark Crabby Tazel Canoe, and we're all about Cambron. If I'm talking a bit silly dialect, maybe try and be a bit broad, I'll say Camborne. But if I'm trying to speak proper English, then I will say Camborne. Depends what you are speaking. But so I mean that.
Now what you're saying, right? It does.
That's the answer.
It depends what you're speaking and who you're speaking to.
Do you have trouble saying "ow" as in how now, brown? How now,
brown cow.
So you say "how now, brown cow."
How now, brown cow.
That's that "ow" sound.
That's the "ow" sound again. Cow is a bit. No, I don't think that's easy to say really.
Cow.
Okay. Cow. It's cow. It's cow, isn't it?
Cow, yeah.
Cow. Now. What are we going to do now? I don't know what the difference in sound is. I think most people don't understand the difference in the sound. It's just the way that you assimilate it. It's just what you say because that's what everybody else says. It's interesting when people realise that they actually are speaking in a way which is not common. Do you know what I mean? Even someone like myself is, brought up in a village, sent to quite a nice school with lots of other farmers more or less, and then go off to Truro school or something. And despite the fact that your accent and dialect gets hammered out of you because you go and work your way or you go away, and it does get hammered out, there's no doubt about that. As it comes back, which it does, you still find you haven't lost certain elements of it. You just can't help it. You can't help it. It's in there.
With the sound system, you tend to lose the grammatical things. Like, so what comes on?
Comes on, yeah.
Comes on.
Gets on with it.
Yeah.
Still use those things.
Still use them, but they're the first to go, I think.
You remember them as expressions like you would a place name. There's a lot of stuff, I think, a lot of dialect stuff. If we're sitting down with friends, talking, those expressions are not dragged out of a dictionary in your head. They're fairly close to the surface. You don't feel self-conscious about it. If that's what your language is, if you don't speak Cornish, as Celtic Cornish, that to me is another language, and it's not one which you're self-conscious about. It comes up. I'll sit in the pub and say, oh, get on. What do you like, get on? And sometimes the expressions you use, you think, where the hell did they come from? Demi, I don't know. Loads of them, I mean, it's endless. It goes on and on and on and on and on. There are just so many expressions, and they're not. I don't think anyone that I know feels in the slightest bit self-conscious about it. And if we do, we suddenly think, crisis. It's important that we remember it, and it's still there, and it's natural to us. Because some of the expressions are just so wonderful, really. They're so colourful.
You think of some?
It's just stuff like, he's gone round their land. I don't know. You still hear it? Ardent the sparrows. When you get into it, it's like speaking. It's like speaking
poetry. Could you repeat some of them, but explain what they mean in sort of standard English? I know Ardent and Pharaohs.
Ardent the sparrows. Well, he's Ardent the sparrows. Yes. Well, it's just like he's as unforgiving and merciless as Pharaoh was. Gone round by land is a weird one. Use that expression for people who've died. Oh, he's gone round by land. I've never really understood what it means, because it's like it's as if everything went by sea, and something that goes round by land is not quite natural. That's the way I interpret it. I've heard it being used quite a few times. Gone round by land. Oh, it's gone round by land. But that's not one you'd hear all the time. People use it. Oh God, it's endless. There's
Up Cameron, they say gone round the land.
oh, gone round the land.
It's broke.
That's right.
It's like it's
Gone round, that's right. Gone round the land.
Gone round,
Yeah.
seen everything.
No, well, you may well be right.
You
You may well be right.
broke.
Yeah, but people will say it's gone round by land. You use it as for a person sometimes.
You'd be surprised. There's very little reference to the sea, even though there's a brilliant list of dialect things, of dialect vocabulary collected by the kids at Brownell School.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's genuine because there isn't a single reference there to fish, fishing, or anything. It's all mining, clay work, forest.
I heard a lovely one the other day about, and I probably got this wrong because a friend of mine told me this about a kid at school, and they were going primary school. Isn't that long ago? And they were going through a book of pictures. There's animals in this book, and they come to a picture of one, and the teacher says, I don't know, no matter what the kid was called, and he says, "What's this one?" And he says, "That's edge conger, missus." He says, "It's a what?" It's edge conger. He says, "It's a rabbit." Edge conger. No, it's a rabbit. That's edge conger. Wouldn't say it. This is today. You wouldn't say it because if you're a fisherman family, you don't say rabbit. That's today. That's not 20 years ago or 40 years ago. That's today. That's it. What?
1997.
I have to say that if you like. I'm not sure if it's edge conger. I think it is. I think it is edge conger.
Now,
I was told that last week, and I just thought that was brilliant.
I grew up on top of the hill. You could see both coasts, and what you've just said to me there is just totally alien.
What's this?
Edge conger.
Edge
So it's a
conger.
taboo.
Well, you wouldn't use the word rabbit because no fisherman used the word rabbit. The rabbit's is bad luck.
Is that just a rabbit or?
Rabbit, no, any four-legged animal. It used to be any four-legged animal was bad luck to say. They still do it now. This is not gone. You never say rabbit. Never say rabbit at sea. It's very bad luck. Still goes. Women on board boats. Priest walking down, or a vicar, or meeting the vicar on the way down to the boat. It's bad luck. You go back and go see. Rabbit is still very, very strong everywhere. Don't ask me why. Do with the white hair or something. I don't know. There's probably some theory somewhere. But that's true. That's 1997. That's a kid that had that so well instilled in him. He wasn't going to say rabbit for no one because his father was at sea. Good, eh? Sea and gone.
That's brilliant because that's like folklore, something that ties it specifically to fishing community. It's like there is a real difference. I think the real differences in Cornwall is between coastal and inland.
Oh, it's totally different.
Even down to the cuisine.
Oh yeah.
So never replaced. I mean, mother grew up inland, make pasties and all traditional stuff and guzzle cream and the rest of it. Never had fish. Quite a lot of members of my family wouldn't touch a mackerel. Scavengers. Wouldn't touch it. We never had fish. We used to, you grew up seeing both coasts. And we wouldn't never eat fish.
There's some expressions which are mining expressions. There's one that's still used down here which I really like. Is when you sort of having a laugh and you say, "God damn me, some couple of weeks we are." Now that also will say some pair weeks we are, and that goes back to a pair. So I understand it, or a pair of miners would be a group of three, not two. They pair up in threes, depending on how many men were drilling. Now that could really confuse people because it just sounds like it's nonsense, but in fact it's not anywhere near as nonsensical as it sounds. Just the word pair doesn't actually refer to two. Some pair we three are. you get stupid stuff like that. The more I think about it, the more there is really.
What's doing a para?
Well, that's what they say.
But para is a word for a group, a team.
Is it? That's
Kernow for
well, that is what you will hear. You won't hear it all the time. I've certainly heard that.
pear.
Some pair we three are. But then if you said it a certain way, some pair we three are.
So it's Paris, we three are, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've seen that spelled.
There's we three again. There's a we in there, look. So you shouldn't be there.
I've seen it spelled Pare, which
Yeah.
supposed to be pronounced Para,
Yeah.
but if you're used to reading English, that becomes pear. It's the nearest English equivalent.
Yeah.
I reckon.
Well, that's interesting. I just made a sound then on the tape, which has suddenly struck me as one that we use a lot, and something you'll hear quite a lot. And it's not dialect at all. It's another thing about way people speak, is the use of sounds, which I find very interesting. Like, which you'll hear an awful lot. I've heard a lot in Brittany. It's like, all right, and it has got about I don't know, probably 100 forms of meanings. There's all that, and there's also people who'll sit down and talk and they'll say, I love that as well, because actually there's no words there attached to it at all, but there's always little sounds that got a whole depth of meaning to them. That's also a subtlety. I'll tell you one, just along one last Cornish dialect thing, which I suppose is really Cornish language thing. I might have told you before, but this is the name for the new bridge outside Penzance. I told you this, and that came up. And this is going back a bit now. Years and years ago, I used to go drinking up at a pub called the Radio. Belonged to a chap called Willie Warren, very well known, and there was well known for miners drinking in there. Wonderful place to go. There was a man called Will Ockin, Pendine man, and sitting in there one day, and like they'd ask you, where are you from, boy? And I'd say, I'm living over to New Bridge. Oh, yeah. Alan Tacken. I said, what, Will? Alan Tacken and that right, Willie? And Will said, yeah, that's right, Alan Tacken. And evidently, that is, or it was, and this wasn't just something that one man said, and I was sitting down talking to Will then just for a few minutes, and we went through a load of stuff he was talking about, this is quite a while ago now, what Cornish words were used in his family. Just remembering just a few. There was the cuckoo, the guggoch. There was father always talking about getting off the corn to my son, and there was a load of stuff, loads of words. There was going down to gather as a skimo on the beach, going down to pour, and that was someone who was in his 70s then. That isn't that long ago. And just in those short conversations, just because I knew Will very well, well, you might think about it, it's my God, we say this and say that. So the language and the dialect is not gone, and that'll be with his children as well. So all is not lost by any means.
Brilliant. It's just that kind of continuity. But it's another sort of myth. I hate it when dialect people jump up on stage and say, well, people don't speak like this anymore, and I'm the last one, and it's all dead. It isn't true.
It isn't true. I mean, if you want to talk to someone like, really, Leslie, every time Leslie opens his mouth in the pub, every time that all his friends come in, that is a perpetuation of the way people speak.
Yeah, but
it's every day.
I'm not after.
It's not put on.
I'm not. Yeah.
No, it's real. It's real. It's not put on in any way at all.
I'm not after Cornish language.
No.
Words. I'm
You're
not,
looking
not,
at the way what's happening there.
What I'm doing here is just be like a little taster
Of what's happening.
for somebody up in Callington to be listening to you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just make me, hell, hang on. Oh, well, that one there is closer to what I've heard. Just to make them think a little bit.
Yeah, because you're going to find people, for heaven's sake, 1,000 times broader than I am.
Oh, yeah,
but young people as well, not just old people, young people as well, speak totally different.
I find what you were saying earlier on about your voice to change according to who you're with.
Of course it does.
I'm listening to some of the kids in Penrith. Even the ones right up in the top classes, it's from up the Clay country.
Yeah.
They can speak real awful broad stuff,
Yeah.
or standard English names from one to the other.
Yeah.
But they got a savage way of putting people down.
Oh, yeah, well, I could talk about that. I mean, the savage way of putting people down is.
But they'll use their dialect from that and then flip into perfect standard English to argue someone about nuclear physics. And then they'll flip, use a bit of dialect to have a go at somebody for, I don't know, having a Bunsen to eye or something.
Well, it's the other thing is the way you speak. That's very interesting. A lot of people get very confused down here because we forget. Now, it's different. If you lived in Mosul and you were older, then your voice would go up and down like this, and you'd be speaking like this, my answer all the time, and get up the end of the words. But there's a dryness of dialect down here. A lot of people think we're bloody miserable half the time. It's true, actually, Paul, they do. Because sometimes a lot of the inflections always go down. And a lot of people who, from up the line, find you quite depressing. It sounds so miserable. And actually, you don't. It's just the way we speak. It's true. People have said that. You sound so miserable all the time. Don't sound miserable at all. There's loads of it. I mean, there's stuff going through my mind now, but it's too late now. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's not gone.
Oh, no.
It's pride, really.
Right.